Well, hello, folks. I'm L.A. Little, and this is your daily NeoTA wrap. We take a look at these markets, and we do it from a neoclassical perspective. Each time we ask ourselves what happened today, and what does it tell us about the coming ones. I do this show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, broadcast at or before 10 o'clock Eastern Time. It's archived on YouTube. It's under the channel L.A. Little. You can subscribe to it there, get alerts whenever data is pushed or video is pushed, content, and you can view it anywhere, any device at your own convenience. We nightly do a show here looking at the markets and asking ourselves what happened today and what does it tell us about tomorrow. And what we're talking about is tape reading, supply and demand. What is happening in this market? What clues is it giving us? And right now, because there really isn't much quote-unquote supply and demand, in other words, we're just drifting into the end of the year, which is typically what happens this time of the year, there's not a lot of conclusions to draw other than the trend that exists. And the trend that exists is on the upside. If we look at the ending numbers, we're seeing that upside continue. You saw the Russell barrel ahead again today. As compared to everything else, we had gold down about $11, over 1%. The bonds were up strongly, up 0.75%. Nat gas actually tacked on after being hammered for quite a while, and oil makes a new low. Dollar up again. Elsewhere, pretty much the same thing. And really, if there's something to conclude from what we're seeing here, and let me get to the S&P 500. Is if we look at something that continues to go up, which is, listed issues, S&P 500, you got a swing point high here, but it really is just on one time frame, right? We don't have it on the weekly. We don't have any kind of breaks of swing point highs with the exception of this one. Yeah, we're getting a push, but it's nothing like what you're seeing on the Russell. And why is that? Why is this Russell making this kind of a move when everything else is basically standing still? Right? How can the Russell continue to move up day after day after day, and it's got this big push without any kind of retrace? Well, it's because it broke multiple swing points. I talk about this a lot. I've talked about it in my books. Breaks of multiple swing points on multiple time frames typically leads to 2 to 3 bars more in the direction of the break and on the time frame that it breaks on, the highest time frame. And in this case, it's the weekly. So that says that we should expect 2 to 3 bars extension to the upside in this particular case. Now, I caveat that by saying, 2 to 3 bars extension. What I mean by that is that, it typically will continue to carry, but the caveat is that if it's overextended, which in this case, it's a little extended, but I don't know that it's overextended on the weekly. That says that this thing is probably going to trade at least a sideways to higher, most likely over the next 2 to 3 weeks. And so when I see that and I see this continuation and I compare it to everything else, it's really telling us that that principle is at work. That's the sort of clues we look for. That's the sort of clues we get even in a market that really isn't giving much in the way of clues away. And that's because there really are no players out there right now, and you can see that with the volumes. They're really pretty much dead in the water here. But what do we got happening? What we have happening is a continuation of the trend. And we got 2 more days until the end of the year. I suspect it's going to try to continue to give us a continuation of the trend, not just here, but on all the indexes. Let's pop over and look at the sectors. So the indexes look about the same. Let's pop over and take a look at the sectors. And, with family and friends over, I really haven't, gone through this like I typically do prior to the show. And it looks like we didn't even get an update on the IBB today. Let's look at it from over here because I know it was up today. Yeah, slightly up. So the IBB is coming back to the breakout bar, or excuse me, the breakdown bar, which is this December 23rd bar is when it broke down. Now Gilead actually got an upgrade today, which is part of this, and you can see it's coming back to its breakdown bar right here. Let's look at some of the others in the group, like Amgen, also trying to get back to the breakdown bar. How about Biogen is another one in the group. How about what is it, ACLN, I believe? No, let me get the right symbols here. Actually, let's pop over and just look at them elsewhere. And I'm interested in this group. So Celgene's another one. That one's over the breakdown bar, so that one's actually outdone itself. Alexion was the one I was looking for. And let's see what that one looks like. Also back to the breakdown bar. So most of them are coming right back to the breakdown bars. That's going to be the key price point. Can they get over it, right? If they can't, then the IBB is going to come back and come back the other way. Now the reason I'm looking at that is because of the NDX, right? The NDX is heavily weighted in S&P, in the SOX, in the IBB or the biotechs as a group, and in the 3 big cap stocks. And you can see the NDX is the weakest of the majors right now. It can't move up above the highs. Still struggling even with the lower of the 2 highs. 43.20 is that high. It's got the 43.21 again, so that's another test failure. So 2 days in a row we got test failures now on the NDX. We had a test failure on the composite. That's being battled, of course, by higher highs on the S&P and on the Russell. Let's quickly, I want to see what the big caps look like. So here's Apple. Apple's an over-under today. That one looks like it's going to try to come back tomorrow some. Let's look at Microsoft. Also fading back in, and it's back into that bar. Looks like it's going to come back in some more again. So Microsoft looks like it's going to trade it down some. And Google also over-under, a little less volume. So Google also is trying to trade back in some. So the 3 majors not doing anything. The IBB is a big question mark. And if we look finally at the SOX, which is the other big piece of the NASDAQ NDX, that one's hanging but not going anywhere. So still not bad, but still lacking. And I suspect it's going to stay that way given the way those charts look into the end of the year. So it's probably going to be mixed and struggling with trying to get higher. Let's pop back over to the sectors real quick and see if there's anything else. And I'm just going to flip through them kind of quickly here to see what they look like. So IYT clinging to that move still, hasn't given it up. XLB can't move. XLE was down big, not down big, but it was down a little bit today. It looks like it battled back to almost even. What was down big was, of course, oil. And if we look at the USO as a measure of that, gets under. Now, it wasn't a swing point low, so that's actually interesting. That low was 2053. We close at 2030. Loses another 2.5%. And what's interesting about this is oil does that, yet the XLE doesn't come in. And let's look at the OIH, also doesn't come in. So which gives, right? Which one's telling us the story? Is the USO, is the oil market really going to taper lower into the end of the year and into the beginning of the year, or are these stocks saying that the oil is just about done and going to flip around? Right now, you got to think that one or the other is not telling us the truth, so that will be something to watch. And I don't know. Looking at these charts, it's not clear to me which one's telling the truth. XLF testing highs, can't get any higher. It's struggling here with no volume. XLI, I did notice today that inside the XLF, or actually inside the financials, the KRE was breaking multiple swing points. That's a subgroup inside there, so that's actually a positive within the group. XLK fading back in. That one couldn't move. And I'm going to quickly look inside that because I don't know what was moving. XLP, really some volume in it, but didn't go anywhere. The big winner, of course, continues to be the XLU, the utilities. Another push higher. One of the members asked me about the weekly chart, what that ABCD structure looks like. It looks like about 49.60. We traded up to 49.11 today, so maybe a few more points there. XLV not moving much. It got hit with the biotechs and still can't get back up there. But here's the big winner too, XLY. That one also was a breakout over multiple swing points. So you see it happening. Breakouts, multiple swing points, making bigger moves. XLY, XLU is strong, and over on the indexes, the RUT. Let me quickly, I want to see what's, this is another piece of the XLK, another piece of the NDX is the XLK. We've already looked at Apple. Let's plop through a few more of these. So Cisco's another one. That one's just hanging at the highs. Looks fine. IBM is a big piece of this. So IBM was down, what, 1.13 today? Not big, but that was a drag on the group. It's about 9%. Excuse me, 4.5%, almost 5% of the weighting. Oracle fading back in some. That's actually going to be a buy on the fade if you're watching that one. Qualcomm couldn't go anywhere, and the group that's been hurting is Verizon and AT&T. Both of these have had decent bounces but not going anywhere. So XLK, you know, it looks like IBM was the only one really hurting it, although the big three, Apple, Google, and Microsoft, were not helping either. So that's probably still what's moving that group. Let's look at the OX sector. Let's see if there's anything over here. First, let's look at the emerging markets. That one's fading back in now. That was a retest regen off this swing point low. Didn't quite get to it. We may get one more push to it, but it looks like it wants to go lower. I saw the currencies were trying to move higher today, and by the end of the day, they gave them up. Here's the FXE making new lows. FXY also pushing back towards the lows. And of course the dollar doing the opposite, which is pushing to new highs. And so we still have a strengthening dollar and weakening other currencies weakening. And that, of course, puts pressure on commodities. Let's look at the continuous index. That one's coming back to test the lows again. Bonds we saw pushed up. Let's see what those look like. That looks like a test failure on that breakdown bar, so I think bonds may come back in tomorrow. And the LQD, these are corporate bonds. They moved higher but not much. And let me look at the short end of the curve, the SHY. That one's still hanging at the lows. So you got a steepening of the curve, and we've got a continual demand on the long side with the expectation that we're going to see rates rise on the short end of the curve, and that's pressuring that side of it. Junk bonds come back in, but they made a nice run. And folks, you know, if you don't believe in retest regen, you know, on a strong move down, these are deadly on the way back up. And I think I talked about it specifically, saying this was going to be very hard to get over, that little area between this low and that breakdown bar's low. And as you can see, it comes right up to it, gaps down today. I suspect it will test some more before it's over, but that's definitely a indication of the power of a retest regen area, in this case sellers just trying to get out for even. That's what they're doing, and that's what's, you know, that's what's driving this thing. Okay, so that you know, in a nutshell, that's pretty much the market. Overseas, between being closed and you know, trading flat, there's really nothing much to report there. You had Asia up, Europe was down, but Europe ended up flat, and so really not much to see there. So I'm going to instead turn my attention to some viewer questions and take a look at those. So let's pop into these. Let's do them one by one. Lock is the first one. LifeLock is a it's a identity theft play. This actually was a stock we were in, TA Todayers were in back in this time frame. We got stopped out. I think we took a net loss on this around $16, $17. Got stopped out, went all the way down to, what is that, 1048, and now it's back up to about where we got out, I guess. I'd have to look back at the quotes, but about to there. This one's done what it needs to do to get higher again. So this is another breakout. I liked this company then. It's nothing I dislike about it now. It's just that we just didn't stay in the trade. And when I look at this, this looks like the ABCD structure is going to take it up to and over that swing point high. That's the next area that it wants to get to. This one looks good on the weekly time frame, on the daily time frame, and let me see, on the monthly, 1935, and that high here is 1957. And get back to the daily, you got a breakout, multiple swing points. This is going to carry. It's probably going to carry up to about 1935 to 1950 or so. So another $1.50, $1.30 at least would be my take. So yeah, I like this one. The next one, SWR. And bear with me here while I grab another quote. Okay, so SWR is actually Sierra Wireless. And this one has had quite a push already. So this was a breakout back on 3074. And it's trading at 47 already. So that's 17 bucks on 30. That's about a 55% gain already in what, 6 weeks? That's a pretty hefty gain. Let's look at it on the weekly. Okay, so on the weekly there's an ABCD structure that would take it potentially higher, right? What I don't like about this is how much it's already gained, right? So there's a large ABCD structure here that I'd have to do it on a percentage basis. I don't have that up right now, but that looks like that would take it to about 54 or so. That's another, what, 6, 7 bucks on this time frame. And I'm glancing over at the monthly. Let me pull that one across because you got an ABCD structure here as well, and this one looks like it's almost done though. 1202. That's about 9. Yeah, this one already is done. That's 26. It's way over that. And then you got another one from here. 17. It's about 13. Onto that's 35. Excuse me, 45, and it's just over that. So you know, when I look at this, actually it's 35, I think. Yeah, so both of those are done, right, on the monthly. The volumes look good. You know, the only thing I have to say about this is it's stretched, and so you know, with it being the end of the year, I don't know that I'd want to press my luck on this one right now. I would wait for some sort of retrace to buy it. And where could that be? Ideally, that would be back at this price point, but it ain't going to come back there. It's 39.50. So, you know, if you're going to trade this, you're going to have to try to catch it off of last week's low, 42.51. 42.51 would be a retest regen off this high. So I would be looking, you know, I would be looking for some sort of retrace to catch it. You get a breakout here, and I don't think that's a test. That high was 42.12. Yeah, it didn't test it. So that first retrace, when it comes back into this area, that's the buy. More than likely it's going to be after 6 bars, it looks like, and more than likely it's going to be a buy as a result of that. So I'd be looking to buy this on a retrace versus this stretch, and that's purely a function of how far it's already moved with respect to where it is now. Last one here is Wisdomtree's investments. So these guys, they have a bunch of ETF products. So you had a breakout probably on earnings back here, and it's just been doing a sideways trade. And so there's nothing wrong with that chart. Let's look at this one on the weekly. So this high was 1666. It got over it, didn't it? Yeah. And the swing point high over here is 1621. It's done a full retest and is trying to reach in higher. Yeah, this one's probably going to work higher. You know, and the only reason, usually I'm very concerned with these, but the reason this is stuck where it is, and it could be stuck for a while longer, but the reason it's stuck is this bar, right? That bar is where all the volume is, right? Notice the volume here. You come up on great volume off of earnings probably. You get a nice spike on the next bar, so you have two bars of big volume. Okay, after a big move, this went $5. That's a 40% move. After a 40% move, you run into resistance. Well, what's it going to do? Well, it's going to try to retrace and, you know, do some work back the other way, and that's exactly what it did, right? Comes in deep, right, off of that. Actually got underneath. The retest regen zone is right there. You see I got under it, just one bar though, and actually closed right at it. Now it's back up testing again. It doesn't appear to me that it's ready to break out. What it's looking like to me is it's going to hang here and wait on the earnings and try to use the earnings to break out. So if you're thinking about it as an earnings play, let's see, this was on October 31st, so that would put earnings about the end of January probably. I suspect this thing's going to try to break out on those earnings. Now, the only way it might trade differently than that is if earnings are great for other companies the first, couple, 3 weeks of January, and this one creeps up into record high territory in anticipation of it and with support of the general market. But since we don't really have enough clues yet, and we won't until next week, as to what that general market wants to do into the new year, again, here I'd probably have to catch it on a retrace or force it to break out, one of the two. And that breakout is going to be over these two highs, 1666, 1671. It's got to get over them, and I suspect it ain't going to do that in the next 2 days. More than likely, you're going to see a retrace or a breakout on the 1st or the first week of January, the first trading week. So the retrace is back into this bar. That's $14.99. As close as you can get to that is where I'd try to pick it up on the retrace. On the flip side, I'd make it break out and show me that it's going to go higher to try to buy that breakout. Okay? All right. Well, that's it for tonight. The market is going to grind higher. And yeah, it's a grind right now, and it's going to stay that way. Friday, you got a lot of news with respect to PMIs. Next week, you got earnings season starting the week after, and you got the ECB. Let me see. I think earnings season starts. Let me look here. Yeah, actually, earnings season starts next week, middle of the week. And then you got the ECB on Thursday, on the 8th. That's going to be what moves the market next week. Those first couple of earning reports out of the primary companies, Wells Fargo, JPM, those are the primary ones that first week, and the ECB. So, PMIs Friday may give us some clues. If not, it's going to be, anywhere from the 8th and the 9th of next week that we're going to see something. And up until then, the market is probably going to just sit here and do what it's doing. We will see volume start to come back in around the 5th and 6th. And at that point, I would expect we start seeing the larger players try to position. And that's where we'll be looking for clues as to whether we're going to get a move up or down. How we're going to do it, well, maybe I'll share that with you tomorrow night in terms of the indexes and the way they play. I wrote an article today, so I can't front run it. It looks like it's going to print tomorrow, so I have to wait on it. All right? Have a great one. Take care. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time. You tell a friend, tell two. I'm LA. This is and it was your daily NeoTA wrap. Have a great night. Good night, folks.